have now the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, that we penetrate the cabinets.
I also want to reiterate how deeply sorry Canada is for the situation this put President Zelensky and the Ukrainian delegation in. It is extremely troubling to think that this egregious error is being politicized by Russia and its supporters to provide false propaganda about what Ukraine is fighting for.
Why does this government treat Alberta like a fart in the room that nobody wants to talk about or acknowledge?
I heard her say a word that I know is distinctly unparliamentary, and I think she may want to withdraw it. The word was F-A-R-T.
I mean, we love your Mr. Trudeau. I mean, his family's always been such big fans of our flag.
Welcome, everybody. welcome, and more welcome. Hope everybody's having a good night. I'm your host, Snow Himbo. This is the Maple Files. No Yeti this week. He is busy building Minecraft IRL, and yeah, he's a little energy depleted, if you will. Not like Crab. He doesn't have a rash like Big Mad Crab has. Crab is still fighting for his life with that rash, but it's different. Nevertheless, he'll be back next week. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Hope everybody's had a good weekend, a good start to their week. I just came off a extra long birthday weekend. So I'm in a weird spot where I actually am looking forward to getting back to work, which I feel like is a great argument for the 4-day work week. Because every time I take like that extra day off, just like one extra day, just one day to just kind of veg out, play some video games, watch some TV, go for a walk, work out, just do whatever self-care. I feel like I come back to the week and I'm a lot more energized than just the Friday, and then you got Saturday. Saturday can be it depends on how hectic your week is, but for me at least, some Saturdays are just a write-off. I just want a potato all day. I don't really want to do much. And then Sunday usually get some stuff done. And then it's back to Monday, and I feel like it's not enough of a recharge. I'm lucky enough to have a company that is very liberal with days off. They give us lieu days for working holidays and whatnot. They give us plenty of vacation days. I actually have to burn a bunch of vacation days because if I don't, I'm going to lose them at the end of the year. So I might make every week until the new year a 4-day work week. I'll have to bring that up tomorrow with my superior. Anyway, we got a bit of a shorter show this week. Mostly because A, Yeti's out, and B, it's a little bit of a slow news week for Canada. We had BC had the NDP W, so I don't want to congratulate them because they're essentially like center left if you're depending. That's, as you guys know, that's pretty far outside of my wheelhouse. But it's better than the insane reactionaries taking power. So we've got a bit of a stay of execution for a little bit. At least until the election next year. Where, I mean, unless the Liberals or the NDP do some serious work, they're they're probably looking to get pretty clobbered by the Conservatives. But who knows? That's in a year. And if the American election has taught you anything, it should teach you that a lot of shit can happen in 1 year. Also, I'm not going to lie, I think, just based on people I'm talking to, I feel like Pierre's shtick is starting to get a little old. I think that's why the Conservatives are like so frantically trying to push like an election as soon as possible. I don't think it's going to be good for them to have more time. They've kind of harnessed everyone's like reactionary energy at this point. But the thing is, you can't hold that too long. Because people are going to have some more time to think about it, and they'll realize, hey, wait a minute. And we'll get to that. Hey, wait a minute. You guys aren't really all that different from the Liberals in terms of policy, in terms of voting records, in terms of what you'll actually do for working class families. And then they might come to their senses and be like, you know what? Fuck it. Because I will say, like I've said before, this is indeed a great opportunity for the NDP to go, hey, so we've had Liberals, we've had Conservatives. This ain't working out. Hasn't been working out for a long time. Let's try something new. If I were in charge of the party, that's exactly the direction I would push it. I'd be like, look, guys, this shit ain't working. Everyone's poor. Everyone's in debt. We got to figure out something better. Because this ain't cutting it. And the Conservatives are just going to do what the Liberals are doing, but they're going to make you even poorer because that's what conservative governance always fucking does. It always drives the economy right off a cliff. And then it sets the car on fire right before it drives the economy off the cliff. That being said, without boring y'all too much, we're just gonna get right into it. So the first story we have, courtesy of Louis Ross of rabble.ca. We've featured this site before. Corporate surveillance and online spooks. There is a whole industry engaged in suppressing those who threaten corporate profits through seeking transparency and accountability. In a recent newsletter, the Canadian Biotechnology Action Network, CBAN, informed its network of a global independent media investigation uncovering a massive international corporate operation of undercover activities that downplays the risks of pesticides and genetically modified organisms, GMOs, and designed to discredit environmentalists in Africa, Europe, and North America. CBAN members include farmer associations, environmental and social justice organizations, and regional coalitions of grassroots groups. It brings together 15 groups to research, monitor, and raise awareness about issues relating to food security and sustainability, and genetic engineering in food and farming. So the revelation of undercover activities by corporate interests trying to downplay the risks of pesticides and genetically modified organisms struck home. In late September, several investigative reports were published in media outlets around the world detailing how the U.S. government funded a U.S.-based international public relations firm to gather and provide information on thousands of individuals in an effort to counteract global resistance to pesticides. This funding by the U.S. government and corporate clients of the public relations firm helped to create an underground social network created to weaken global environmental efforts. It would likely be naive in this day and age to think that the global corporate pesticide lobby would not actively engage in methods and strategies to discredit environmental and organic farming movements. But it is stunning to read that these efforts were in part funded by the United States government to profile its own citizens, to influence legislation, and anti-pesticide policies in other countries, and to create misleading, if not deliberate misinformation related to the dangers of pesticide use. These independent international media investigations outlined how Vfluence, a PR firm based in Missouri, which prides itself on strategies that promote reputational and risk management, worked to create online content and profile scientists, lawyers, environments, and activists, I think they mean environmentalists, in any way critical of the agrochemical industry. The public relations firm actively worked to provide intelligence to discourage governments from adopting policies to ban pesticides. The campaign worked to encourage, for example, the use of paraquat in Kenya, and worked to derail legislation and conferences that could provide alternatives to the use of pesticides across Europe, Africa, and North America. In the process, thousands of individuals were profiled and personal information shared with corporate clients and individuals working in government, for example, the Department of Agriculture in the US. It is indeed eye-opening to have the impact of this corporate misinformation campaign chronicled in such great detail by major well-respected international news outlets. In fact, the collection of data on thousands of individuals around the world includes scientists, journalists, lawyers, United Nations employees, as well as individuals such as US food writers Michael Pollan and Mark Bittman, the Indian environmentalist Vandana Shiva, and the Nigerian activist Nemo Bassi. I could have messed up that name. My apologies. The collection of this data, both personal and public, breaches privacy laws in many countries, according to the report, and at the very least is unethical and suspect in many others. The data on individuals was distributed via a private social network managed by an entity called Bonus Eventus. Bonus Eventus Erectus, I'm kidding, is a Boner Eventus. Okay, I'm being stupid. This is an offspring of public relations firm Vfluence, which denies reports of any wrongdoing in the methods used to provide stakeholder intelligence to its clients. The website, launched in 2014, is the brainchild of former Monsanto Director of Corporate Communications, Jay Byrne, and provides a media monitoring service for chemical company executives and chemical lobby groups. But its darker side is the collection of dirt files on thousands of individuals who have been critical of agrochemical products. A Canadian professor and researcher interviewed by The Guardian had this to say: "Collecting personal information about individuals who oppose the industry goes way beyond regular lobbying efforts," said Dan Antonowicz, it's a Slavic sort of name, pretty sure. Antonowicz? Anyway. An associate professor at Wilfrid Laurier University who researches and lectures about corporate conduct. There is a lot to be concerned about here. The article in The Guardian, US, provides detail on the impact of this covert campaign. The Guardian article also includes information on a lawsuit filed in the US against the public relations firm Vfluence and the transnational Syngenta, alleging collusion to purposefully cover up the links between Parkinson's disease and use of the pesticide paraquat. That's right, y'all. Pesticides are no fucking joke. And people need to understand that there's chemicals on all of our produce, all of our mass created produce. There's pesticides on all that shit. Part of this is why I started a garden, for example, because this stuff cannot be good for you. And there's a lot of research being done into just how bad it is for you. And we're looking at the rise of things like turbo cancers, and you have to ask yourself, I've maintained this position for a really long time. What you put in your body every day is an incredibly important aspect of your health. That is shit you are putting in your body that your body is then absorbing. You are digesting these foods. You are digesting, you're drinking. Do I have to I think that's okay. I think we're I think we're back. Hold on. What the fuck happened now? Give me a sec. This is really annoying. Okay. Checking. Yeah, that looks like it's good. Okay. Okay. Looks like we are back. Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. No, Fred, you haven't gone deaf. I had to move my mic, and the Yeti mic I'm using is it's a little finicky. It'll disconnect, and then I have to fuck with a bunch of stuff. Okay, just going over the comments real quick before we finish this up. Shout out to Snow Himbo and Mad Crab. I briefly mentioned Abidu and Nihilo, the two of you, in your debunking of Trump's Zionist Bitcoin propaganda speech. Thanks, my dude. I'm trying to break as many people out of this ridiculous, fake anti-establishment psyop as I can when it comes to Donald Trump. Because there are so many people who are just completely emotionally captured. There are so many people who are completely emotionally captured when it comes to Trump and his whole operation there that they're just refusing to accept reality. So thank you for the shout out. Fred, audio is back. Damn it, read the chat. I'm reading the chat. I hear ya. I'm seeing it. Anyway, let's finish this up. The hub of this investigation is Lighthouse Reports, a pioneer in collaborative journalism that works with leading media organizations to deliver deeply rooted public interest investigations. This particular investigation was a result of collaboration with The Guardian US, Africa Uncensored, Le Monde, The New Lead, The New Humanitarian, The Continent, ABC News Australia, and The Wire. This article provides links to the exposés published by newspapers across the world, highlighting activities in different countries. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of coverage on this. I find this deeply concerning. I find this deeply concerning mostly because I really do feel like what we put in our body is really important. I really think we need to leverage science to get a much better hold on not only GMOs but also pesticides. All the shit we're putting into our meat, all the chemicals we're using to grow our food. This can't be good for you, and I think we need to do better than we've been doing because people aren't healthy. And I know RFK wants to make America healthy again, but I haven't seen him want to address any of this. And, you know, here in Canada, we have the benefit of being surrounded by farms. And I have the benefit personally of being surrounded by, hey, Witchy, being surrounded by farms and, you know, like organic produce. But the reality is, like, the majority of people need to have access to this stuff. They need to have at least an option to not consume, you know, this chemical slop, if you will. And you know, at the end of the day, I think that always needs to be kind of an option. In a perfect world, it wouldn't exist. And I understand like the logistical problems. Okay, getting a food system up so that we can feed the myriad humans on this planet is obviously comes with a lot of challenges. But I think we need to get to a level where the downside isn't poisoning people, because that kind of misses the point. And if that means that, you know, we switch up society to the point where we're all growing our own food, and we have to kind of leverage community more, shit like what Yeti's doing, where, you know, you're growing your own food, you're working together, you know, working in a community most certainly helps that as well. So I feel like that is definitely I feel like that's definitely a direction that we could take. But also, I mean, I really think we should look into alternatives, you know? Hey, Orca. And no problem at all. Are you being introverted? I'm feeling introverted today too, which is why I don't mind doing this one solo. You know, I'm super chill. I'm not even pissed off about anything tonight, which is a record. I kind of did the self-care thing, so I'm kind of just chilling. So I'm late. I just finished up with DD. I imagine that's Due Dissonance on the Jimmy Dore show. Oh boy, I'd love to tune in. Sorry, I'm kidding. Nothing but love to all of them. I don't know. I'm electioned out, and I know everybody's covering the horse race, and you know, last I heard from Due Dissonance, they're pushing the, you know, swallow your criticism and vote green. And I'm just sitting here like, don't be a vote pig. Don't be a fucking vote pig. Okay? I'm tired of this. I was talking with someone I hope to have on Politically Homeless, someone who's really cool. And we were just talking about how, and I kind of cover this in the live reading I did on Politically Homeless. We have to get people out of this like electoralism brain shit that's going on. We have to get people out of the electoralism. I almost said like electrolyte. We have to get people to abandon the voting shit altogether. Because this shit takes up 90% of people's oxygen. It takes up all of their oxygen, and they focus on nothing else. Okay? This is what drives me insane. Everybody talks about like, oh, we can do both, but you never do. spend all your time pushing whatever party you think is going to save the day, and then you vote. And then if that party doesn't get into office, you spend all of your energy complaining about that party not getting into office and trying to, shove it in everybody's faces. And at the end of the day, no direct action happens, nothing changes, and we're no closer to something like a general strike that would actually bring the capitalist class to its knees. We got to get people to step out of the voting thing. They got to just one person at a time. We got to pull people away from the machine. Anyway, that's a pretty good segue to my next article. Now, this is an older story, but I feel like it bears revisiting since there's so much conservative hype, so to speak. So much conservative juice, I guess, up here in Canada. Oh, isn't that lovely? No, thank you. Liberal, Tory, same old story. Voting records say yes. Two parties voted together more than 600 times in Parliament since 2004, blocking dozens of progressive bills, data shows. I want to ask my American comrades, does this already sound familiar or not? You got the Liberal Party and you got the Conservative Party, and there's tons of rhetoric to separate them, but realistically, when it comes to policy and anything that fucking matters, there's just, more of the same. Liberal, Tory, same old story is a familiar rhetorical refrain in Canadian politics, but we now have data to back it up. So again, this article is from 2021. But I feel like it was an important article to visit, especially given the aforementioned juice people have for the newest shiny object that Canadians have focused on. Since 2004, the earliest date that online parliamentary records are kept, the Liberals and Conservatives voted together more than 600 times on bills, an analysis by The Breach has found. Dozens upon dozens of these joint votes oppose progressive bills put forward by the New Democratic Party, the Greens, or the Bloc Québécois. Across minority and majority governments, the two main Canadian political parties banded together to ensure a broad policy consensus. Huge tax breaks to corporations, a punitive criminal justice system, a less generous social welfare state, a restrictive immigration system, a hugely profitable private pharmaceutical regime, oh yes, pro-corporate trade deals abroad in opposition to expanding workers' rights. The Breach collected and analyzed the voting records. For each government since 2004, we selected examples of liberal and conservative collusion to block progressive policy. So this is 2004 to 5, minority liberal government under Paul Martin. With Paul Martin's Liberals reduced to a minority in the wake of ongoing sponsorship scandal revelations, they voted repeatedly with Conservatives to block progressive legislations. Together, Liberals and Conservatives voted to block bills that would prohibit employers from hiring scabs, workers who replace employees who are on strike or locked out. Make it easier for lower and middle income families to save for post-secondary education. Allow a Canadian citizen or permanent resident to sponsor for immigration a relative who is not a member of the immediate family. Reform employment insurance to reduce the minimum qualifying period of hours worked, increase the benefit period and the rate of weekly benefits, and repeal the waiting period. Require the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation to distribute any surplus from its reserve fund to the provinces for social housing. That one pissed me the fuck off. I grew up with people that affected. Force by-elections for any parliamentarians who cross the floor to another party. Require the Public Service of Canada to provide a workplace free of psychological harassment and impose fines and take action when an employee who has made a disclosure is subjected to retaliation. Reduce patent protection for medicines to make it easier to make cheap versions of much-needed drugs. So again, whenever you hear any sort of noise whatsoever about either conservatives or liberals being the party of the working class, the appropriate response is to laugh very loudly in their face and exit the room immediately, because this is malarkey. Next, we go to 2005 all the way to 2008. Minority Conservative government under Stephen Harper. In 2005, Conservative leader Stephen Harper eked out a plurality of seats and formed a minority government. Liberals supported the Conservatives' punitive law and order agenda and propped up the shaky Conservative minority government in scores of confidence motions. In 2008, Liberal leader Stéphane Dion finally joined NDP leader Jack Layton to force a non-confidence vote and form a government representing the majority of voters, but it was sunk by a shrill media response and Harper's suspension of Parliament, which I also fucking remember. All right, getting the fire back. God, being reminded of all this gunk. All this just gross bullshit. And yeah, exactly, Missy. Canada is getting as bad as America. It's been there for a while, to be perfectly honest with you. Liberals also found other opportunities to team up with Conservatives to vote down several pieces of proposed legislation. These included bills too. Require mandatory labeling on genetically modified food and stricter labeling of imported and prepackaged food. Amend the Railway Safety Act to appoint police constables to deal with railway companies and complaints about them. Amend the Canadian Environmental Protection Act to create more efficient regulation of fuels and an environmental review of biofuel production in Canada. Require the Minister of Defence to table a motion before the House of Commons when a foreign military mission includes or might include an offensive dimension. 2008 to 2011. Minority Conservative government under Stephen Harper. Stephen Harper's second minority government made aggressive moves to cut research funding and undermine climate initiatives, but relied on Liberal support in many legislative areas. The Liberal Party supported a Harper budget that slashed corporate tax rates to among the world's lowest. The world's lowest. Once again, Liberals and Conservatives joined forces to scupper bills to promote economic development by ensuring that the government gives preference to Canadian products in its procurement of its goods and services, which I think would be an at least conservative sort of thing. Canada first, right? Wrong. Neither of them are Canada first because all of our parties are beholden to the rich and powerful. It's not just an American thing. It's a Canadian thing too. It's the reality is this is what happens with any country under capitalism. You don't have a dictatorship of the proletariat, which would be a state, a government controlled by the people, the working class. You have a dictatorship of capital. And what that essentially means is that your politicians are beholden to the richest and most sociopathic most of the time motherfuckers in that country. You can see this across the board. The same play goes into motion every fucking time. They also joined forces to amend the criminal code to add vulnerability due to age as an aggravating circumstance for sentencing purposes to encourage less harsh sentencing for younger people. Provide a refundable tax credit to an individual whose employer failed to make the required contributions to a registered pension plan. Which, I'm sorry, that one's like, what the fuck? Why would you ever block that? Like, what? Require that an analysis of potential harm to export markets be conducted before the sale of any new genetically engineered seed be permitted. They also cooperated to prevent the NDP and BQ from stalling and scrapping pro-corporate trade deals signed with Colombia, Panama, and European countries. Now we go to 2011 to 2015, which was a majority conservative government under Stephen Harper. Harper finally gained his majority in 2011 thanks to a liberal collapse that saw leader Michael Ignatieff lose his seat in Etobicoke. The Liberals reduced the third-party status with only 34 MPs. Harper wielded his new powers, muzzling scientists, reshaping government operations, emboldening social conservatives, and cutting corporate taxes, as the Liberals had done under Chrétien and Martin. While the Liberals lost the leverage that they had during the Harper-led minorities, they found opportunities to work with the ruling conservatives. They joined them in violating the postal workers' right to strike, legislating them back to work. They voted together to move forward pro-corporate trade pacts across South America and Europe. They teamed up to vote for Bill C-51, draconian legislation that expanded policing and spy powers, violates the Canadian Charter of Rights. So for Americans, that's our Constitution, or the closest thing we have to it, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and had disturbing implications for free speech, privacy, and civil liberties. They both voted to increase capital gains exemptions to $800,000 so the wealthy and corporations could pay less tax on even more money, which appeased the big business lobby. They both voted to pass the inflammatory Zero Tolerance for Barbaric Cultural Practices Act, which is, go look that shit up on your own. That's just unhinged as hell. They also voted against a bill allowing pregnant or nursing employees to avail themselves of provincial occupational health and safety legislation. And now we're getting to the real good shit. 2015 to 2019, majority Liberal government under Justin Trudeau. Now remember, guys, this was the electoral reform guy, the working class guy, the I'm gonna stand up for you sort of guy. Thanks to Trudeau's bold progressive promises, the Liberals shot from 36 seats to 184, taking the reins decisively. Which, like, always happens, right? When a Liberal wants to get a Conservative out of power, they go 200% in on the big promises. You saw that with Biden. All those promises he peppered people with. When everybody was sick of Orange Man and sick of the corporate press screaming about Orange Man, which holy fuck was I was like, please, for the love of God, just make this guy go away. Anyway, 8 years later, Liberals and Conservatives banded together to push through another pro-corporate trade pact, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, and once again legislated postal workers back to work. Justin Trudeau kept in place the corporate tax giveaways brought in by Harper and added some new ones. Opposition parties took what few opportunities they had to introduce progressive measures. The Liberal and Conservative benches took those same rare opportunities to vote against bills and motions too. Implement a national strategy to reduce poverty and appoint an independent poverty reduction commissioner. I know, I know, guys. Fuck. Amend the Canadian Bill of Rights to include the right to proper housing at a reasonable cost and free of unreasonable barriers. Again, huge. Amend the Export and Import Permits Act and the Criminal Code to create more stringent conditions for selling weapons to countries abroad for offensive purposes. Hey guys, who wants to tell me what this one would come in handy for here in 2024? Anyone want to take a stab at having more stringent conditions for giving weapons to countries abroad for offensive purposes might come in handy? Yeah. That one would have been a little nice in the midst of, I don't know, a fucking genocide. This is getting me heated again. I needed this because I got more shows this week. I need to get all fired up. Give me 1 sec here. Okay, we're back. Again, every time I hit this fucking mic, it like has a seizure. So, they also voted against bills and motions to establish a procedure for expunging certain cannabis-related convictions, which have primarily affected radicalized. Is there no audio? There should be audio. Hold on. Yeah, there's audio. Ugh, you distracted me. Allow non-Canadians to bring civil claims in federal court over violations of international law outside of Canada. Amend the Canadian Human Rights Act to add social condition as a prohibited ground of discrimination. Require that fish aquaculture for commercial purposes in Canadian waters off the Pacific coast be carried out in closed containment facilities, which just makes sense. And then we come to the end of the article. 2019 to 2021, minority government under Justin Trudeau. After systematically betraying promises to usher in bold transformational change, Trudeau was reduced to a minority. He pushed back against the NDP, which had enough votes to pass legislation with the Liberals, and its overtures for progressive changes, voting with the Conservatives to shut down bills or motions to develop an action plan to ensure that Canada fulfills its obligations under the Paris Agreement, as well as develop a climate emergency action framework, establish a Pharmacare Act for universal pharmacare program, which we're still trying to get off the fucking floor, thanks to these idiots. Amend the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board Act to ensure that investments meet basic environmental and workers' rights standards. Establish a federal dental care plan as soon as possible for Canadian families earning less than $90,000 per year who are not covered by a dental care plan as a step towards the inclusion of full dental care in Canada's healthcare system. I'm sorry. Dental care should just be healthcare. Like, I have directly suffered because I maxed out my work's like dental care plan, and we couldn't afford like the crazy cost of certain dental procedures. I'll never understand why this isn't actually part of like every country's healthcare plan. Certain dental afflictions, for example, they can affect your heart. Dental care is part of like actually taking care. Actually part of taking care of your overall well-being. And people need teeth. You gotta eat, right? Like, if you don't have teeth, you're gonna end up in your later years slurring all over podcasts like Donald is. I don't know if that guy actually has dentures, but I've noticed all of his interviews now, he's like slurring really bad. So I don't know, like, I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe Grandpa's medicine isn't. Maybe they're trying a new dose of something. I don't know. Lastly, establish a wealth tax of 1% tax on wealth over 20 million, which is good because something similar was implemented in the States in a period of time that had the lowest wealth inequality. So a period of time where the most people were doing well relatively. Not like a handful of billionaires and the rest of us are eating twigs and rocks and shit. Also, an excess profit tax on big corporations that have been profiteering from the pandemic. Well, we see how that worked out. The COVID era was the greatest transfer of wealth in the history of mankind. Which don't think for a second was by accident. Okay? Because capitalists gonna capitalize. You're not a good capitalist unless you are a rugged fucking opportunist. That's just facts. That's just real talk. And finally, take measures to make Canada's telecommunications services more affordable and accessible to Canadians. I'd take that one further. I think we need to nationalize telecommunications. I think we need to nationalize the pharmaceutical industry. I think we should be nationalizing them right fucking now. I don't know why we're still in this deadlock when it comes to Rogers or Bell. And if you're Canadian, you get what I'm talking about. We've got two giant corporations that have a monopoly on telecommunications. Everything from phone lines to your internet, right? And and the problem is they've also bought out all the smaller companies. So like, for example, if you're like, oh, screw Bell, I'm going with TELUS. Well, Bell actually owns TELUS. Same thing with Fido. We just switched from Fido to Rogers, and I found out that Fido was actually just like just like a sock puppet for Rogers. So I take this a little further, but excuse me. You kind of see the problem here. I hope everybody kind of sees the problem with these parties. Much like the States, the rhetoric might be different. The rhetoric for these two parties is likely different in different areas. But the reality is, at the end of the day, the conservatives and the liberals agree on far more than they oppose. And that's the thing. You got to look at policy. Don't look at rhetoric. Look at policy. The policy is always where you see the actual similarity. Because you see it right now. You got Pierre calling Trudeau like a communist and doing like cringy anti-Marxist boomer memes. And then, you know, you got those fuckers calling Pierre Maple MAGA, which I think is really cringe. I don't like that. I just call him Millhouse. You know why? Because he hates it. You know how I know he hates it? It's because he doesn't wear glasses anymore. Because people tease him because he looks like fucking Millhouse. And he still looks like Millhouse, just without the glasses. Enough with this Maple MAGA shit. Conservatives are conservatives. They're never going to come in a different flavor. All right? You should assume that the Conservative Party of Canada is Maple MAGA. Because MAGA is just, it's all the same reactionary politics, people. All right, we know what they're going to do. They're going to say fuck the poor, and they're going They're going to serve their donors and they're going to serve their corporations. So just a little food for thought. The next time you get caught up in one of these massive narratives on how either we have to stand with Trudeau because Pierre is going to turn everything fascist and evil and blah, blah, blah. Okay. If there were considerable oxygen between these two parties, they wouldn't be this close when it comes to policy, when it comes to voting. They wouldn't be voting together over 600 fucking times. And again, that's why I say, don't be a vote pig. Because this whole system is rigged. It is rigged against you and me. Both in the States and up here. Because when the two major political parties virtually agree on everything when it comes to policy, what the fuck do you have? You don't have a democracy. And with first past the post voting, you could successfully argue you don't have one to begin with anyway. Because the majority of your voting decisions are going to be while holding your nose because you're scared of the greater evil versus the lesser evil. What the fuck is democratic about that? Like, the only reason, and I gotta give Trudeau credit, or whoever came up with this strategy, I gotta give him credit for this. The only reason I voted for Trudeau the first time around is because he promised electoral reform. Because I, being a younger, less cynical, and more doughy-eyed and hopeful individual, thought, well, this is going to be the last time I'm going to need to vote for the Liberals. This is going to be the last time I need to vote for the Liberals. Because after that, I don't have to do this lesser evil voting anymore. I can vote for progressive parties. I can vote for as far left as they'll allow me without throwing me in jail. And of course, he got into office, and then he essentially said something along the lines of, well, now that we're in office, we don't really need to reform the electoral system because you guys made the right choice. Something like that. But it was as vapid and narcissistic as you can probably guess it to be. Oh shit. There are two Stephanies in the house. Guys, there are two Stephanies. Two. Yeah. I digress. That's where the fuck we're at. Yes, indeed. Hit that like button, please. Just Shannon, world's fact. Now get back to PQ, you animal. I assume they mean Project Quorum. If so, I might come back whenever Velius is coming out. Aside from that, I don't have a ton of time for MMORPGs. Hey, Nihilo. How's it going, man? Here's the thing. If I'm going to invest in MMORPG, it's either going to be Evercraft Online or Pantheon. Those two look really sexy. Either of those, I'll probably be pretty hook, line, and sinker. Pronounce Mamor Pugger. Mamor Pugger. Oh, I see what you did there. I like that. I like what you did there. Thank you for doing that. Have you played Evercraft Online? That's my question for you, sir. I've played 2 playtests now, and I'm not gonna lie, it just works for me. I don't know why. I don't know why the fuck it works, but it works. The Minecraft, in addition to like the super like similar class sort of stuff, I made a video on it on my Snow Himbo channel, but like they nailed the classes too. Like I legitimately was able to fear kite as a Shadow Knight. That's dope. That's actually so dope. Although I will say on Project Quorum, my favorite moments on Project Quorum were like playing my SK, my XR SK. They did phenomenal with the Kunark launch. That was so much fun. Anyway, what else do we have on the docket? I think that might be about it. Let me see. How long is this article? Okay, so you guys might have heard about this, possibly. It has been kind of sweeping the rounds as of late. But the Conservative Party leader has a bit of a problem. As of October 16th, Polyev refuses to learn which members of his party are involved in political interference. Pierre Polyev is the only leader who has refused to get a security clearance, despite allegations that members of his party were involved in foreign interference by the Indian government. The revelation that the Indian government has been actively involved in interfering in Canadian politics and has been supporting criminal actions in this country continues to divide the leaders of Canada's political parties. On Monday, October 14th, the RCMP stated publicly that they had evidence that the government of India had been actively involved in criminal activities in Canada. According to the RCMP, these activities included directing and facilitating harassment, extortion, and event assassinations against individuals in Canada they viewed as dissidents, which is fucking creepy. Conservative refuses to intake information. I am flabbergasted. Last June, Indian diplomats were expelled from Canada after Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced in the House of Commons that Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar had been assassinated in BC on the orders of the Indian government on June 18th. This latest revelation has led both Canada and India to mutually expel one another's diplomats. Conservatives put political games over national security. India has gone beyond simply targeting dissidents. They have also actively sought to influence and coordinate their actions with Canadian politicians. The Canadian Security and Intelligence Services, CSIS, the RCMP, and the Liberal government all allege that India has sought to influence members of the Conservative Party of Canada. I'm going to make a little bit of a hot take here. I don't think the reason Pierre won't get security clearance is because of India. I definitely think he's probably involved with a foreign government, given everything we've covered on that show and everything you've seen on social media. I just don't think the government's India. I think there's a certain Middle Eastern country he's probably a little too far in bed with, and I'll just let you guys guess which fucking one. I have the names of a number of parliamentarians, former parliamentarians, and or candidates in the Conservative Party of Canada who are engaged or at high risk of, or for whom there is clear intelligence around foreign interference, said Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at a hearing on Wednesday, October 16th. Trudeau added that the leader of the Conservatives, Pierre, has refused to learn the names of the members of his party who may be involved in targets of foreign interference from India. Leader of the Conservative Party not knowing the names of the people in his party, that kind of just tracks a little too much. The decision by the leader of the Conservative Party to not get those classified briefings means that nobody in his party, not him, nobody in a position of power, knows the names of these individuals and can take appropriate action, says Trudeau. The only leader without a security clearance, which is fucking weird. I'm sorry, that's just weird. Of course the Liberals are using it. Of course they're using it. And of course they're being as cynical as humanly possible. But again, like, another thing we got to snap out of as a society, we have to just let criticism sit. Because I'm seeing a lot of this shit where it's like, one side will just automatically assume that any criticism is because they're like with the other team. Refusing to receive security clearance is objectively a problem. The most staunch conservatives should be up in arms over this. Everyone should be. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. Yet I see conservative talking heads of the Canadian variety, of the maple persuasion, if you will, all over social media trying to just hand wave it away. This should be a concern for you. You can say you're concerned about a thing, even if it's someone in your team. That's actually how you're supposed to approach politics. You are supposed to approach politics by holding your guys accountable, holding your party accountable. These aren't your friends, and they're not people you should fucking look up to, which is a lesson that I guess North America is just doomed to repeat over and over again. I saw it with the huge fandom when Justin Trudeau came into power. I'm seeing it with the cult-like bullshit going on. The cult-like bullshit going on in America with Trump right now, which is I don't even know how to parse that. And plenty of other examples. The weird Hobbit guy in Argentina, people are worshipping him, even though he still hasn't thrown the ring into Mount Doom, and he crashed Argentina's economy. I don't know if you guys saw that famous meme where he's like, "Listen up, liberal," crashes economy. The issue of foreign interference in the Conservative Party has dogged the Tories for the past year. Ever since CSIS revealed that they believe that India and other countries attempted to influence the last Conservative leadership race, which Polyev won. Really curious. I wonder what other countries they might be hinting towards. I can't think of a single country that might be influencing our government. And the American government, and the British government, in the wake of an ongoing genocide. But yeah, we're here. We're here, folks. We're right here. They stated that knowing the hold on. At that time, during a debate in the House of Commons, Polyev and other conservatives implied that having their leader get his security clearance was some kind of trap. They stated that knowing the classified information would prevent him from making statements about that information. In other words, if Polyev knew the classified information about political interference, he wouldn't be able to play politics and own the libs. I love how that's in a fucking article. Guys, this is why I love rabble.ca. Like, you get really balanced, really objective, very fair coverage that is very detailed. But they don't speak like a bunch of fucking malfunctioning robots. In a statement released on Wednesday, Polyev claimed that his chief of staff did have a security clearance and had been receiving intelligence briefings presumably on his behalf. Chief of Staff has received classified briefings from the government. At no time has the government told me or my Chief of Staff of any current or former Conservative parliamentarian or candidate knowingly participating in foreign interference, the statement reads. Poilievre then went on to challenge Trudeau to release the names of the Conservatives who allegedly were involved in foreign interference activities, something Trudeau could not do without violating the classified nature of such information. Which Poilievre either had to have known or, more concerning, did not know. You've got a leader of a political party up here saying, well, why don't you just publish the classified information to everybody? He knows it's empty. But he also knows that the majority of his supporters aren't going to care. Canadian Pierre Poilievre enjoyers are not, they really aren't dissimilar from the MAGA crew insofar as they just accept information from him and there's no processing of the information. They just accept it, they put a stamp on it, and it's just gospel. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh also directly attacked Poilievre for refusing to get a security clearance. I love our country. I love our democracy. I would do anything to protect it. I can't imagine or understand any political leader who also wouldn't do anything to protect our country. That's why it troubles me deeply that Pierre Poilievre is unwilling to receive a security clearance and fully understand what is going on, said Singh in a statement. Singh said that Poilievre was putting his own political fortunes ahead of national security. The utmost important thing is country first. Protecting our country and protecting Canadians. We just heard from the RCMP that Canadians are being targeted. Canadians are being shot at. Their homes are being shot at. Their businesses are being shot at. They are being extorted. It is alleged that it is being orchestrated by Indian government officials, Singh said. Finally, Singh warned that Poilievre was sending a message to the Indian government that he condoned their actions attacking Canadians. At a time when we have active threats against Canadians, he wants to be the only leader that doesn't want to look at what's going on. This does send a message to the Indian government that there is one leader that is willing to look away, Singh. It's by Nick Seabrush. So, not great. Really not great. If there's anything politics has taught me over the years, it's whenever a politician is dragging his heels on something that seems like it would be relatively painless, there's a damn good reason for that happening. There's a damn good reason they are dragging their heels. So, anyway, that's pretty much it for tonight. I know it was a shorter show, but we covered some interesting stuff. I would argue. The big one I wanted to get out was just kind of that article, just reminding people that it's like, for all the rhetoric that these parties fill your head with, you just got to look at the policy. You got to look at the meat and potatoes. You got to look at how different they are when it comes to the actual actions they're taking. Because that's how it's going to fucking affect you. Rhetoric isn't going to affect you. Whatever they say in front of a teleprompter is not going to affect you or your family. It's what they do when they're in government. It's the actions they take. And two parties that vote hundreds of times within such a short window of governance, A, are likely not that different, and B, probably don't have your interests in mind. Because, there's pretty low chances that they're both pro-worker. But again, that's how conservatives always roll. They package all of their policies up as pro-worker, but when you peel them away, the big guy's always the one running away with all the benefits, and the worker is always the guy who's getting fucked. And once they get into office, well, that's when they start dealing the major damage, because the liberals and the conservatives for decades now have blocked any progress whatsoever to the left. We got the ratchet effect up here too, folks. The conservatives and the liberals block progress to the left. And then the conservatives drag it back to the right. They actually work much more in cohesion than the political parties in the States even do, which is impressive, really. Catching up on some comments here before we say goodnight. Maple flavored sausages taste like shit. That is correct. Here's the thing. If you're going to put maple syrup on something like sausages or bacon or what have you, go nuts, but just pour it right on it. Pouring maple syrup on sausage is delicious, but this maple flavored weirdness they got going on in some products now, just, it don't hit the same. It don't hit the same as that classic big breakfast where you got your stack, okay, you got your bacon and sausage, you got your eggs, and then you pour the maple syrup on the sausage and the eggs, or sorry, the sausage and the bacon, and then the eggs kind of get in. And I'm not gonna lie, at some point ketchup, maple syrup, and meat gets into your mouth at the same time, and it's somehow delicious. I don't know how ketchup and maple syrup go together, but in your mouth, just eating that big breakfast, at least for me, they do go together, and they're magnifique, as the Québécois say. All right. Anyway, love you guys. Thanks so much for coming in and hanging out with me. We'll be back with Politically Homeless this week. Be sure to check INN for a full breakdown of all the shows we got going on. We'll be doing a special election sort of shindig, covering that dumpster fire soon enough, so pay attention to that. And yeah, next week Yeti will be back, and we'll probably have a lot more shit to talk about. Anyway, thanks again, everybody, and have a good night. And most importantly, two most importantlies. Number one, keep questioning everything. Number two, don't be a vote pig.